Hey guys, my name is Neil and welcome to NEEL Workshop Zone. So in this episode we will be talking about a lot of things actually. So in our previous episodes we kind of talked about the types of arguments and parameters, and in this episode we're going to be talking about multiple things, like we're going to be talking about the pass statement, the default parameter value, etc. So if you haven't checked out the previous videos, I recommend checking out them, because there are some important things like Python functions and arguments, etc. that will be useful for understanding this episode. So without any further ado, let's talk about it. So first let's talk about the default parameter value. So imagine writing a function and you need to print out multiple values. So for example, let's write down a simple function. Or let's write the function name as fruit. So now let's write something like let's write down some functions like this. So basically what we're saying here is we have written down a function named fruit, and now we're writing down the sentences that it has to print. So let's write down two more. So now let's imagine that you need to write down some sort of formula. So imagine you have one more statement that you need to print, but you don't know what to print. Or imagine writing down multiple functions, printing like this, and you have 2 or 3 gaps and you want to write like a default function. So it's kind of like imagine if they ask you to pick a number from 0 to 5, and if you wrote 6, then it says that it's not available and it's not valid. So that's kind of like what you can do here. So for example, if you left something blank, it will probably show an error. But to not show an error and instead write something default, you can do something known as default parameter value. So what you can do is, inside the function itself, you can write something like fruit is equals to berry, or like I said, and let's close this up. Now if you print this, it'll probably say apple, banana, berry and guava, because you left this blank, so it just prints in the default statement. And if you didn't write this berry and just wrote it like this, and you didn't write any of this, they'll probably show an error or probably won't print it. So that is how default parameter value works. So now let's talk about the pass statement. So now let's say that you're writing code and you have to write a function. So let's write a simple function again, like def my underscore function. But imagine you still don't know what the function to write. So you're writing really lengthy piece of code, and you just want to remember that you need to add a function here. So write this function and you continue on with the code. But it will show a lot of errors, as you didn't specify anything and there is no statements to print, so it'll probably show some errors. So the way you can prevent errors instead of just erasing it and doing something is you can use a statement called pass. So what the pass statement does is it basically it takes it out that it says that the function is still there, but it doesn't run it, so it basically passes it. This gets useful when you're doing lengthy pieces of code and you just write these functions, but you don't write them yet because you don't know what to write. But you write pass so that it still exists, but you can come back to it later, take out the pass and write something else. So that's a very useful feature. So that is how pass works. Now let's talk about how many types of functions can I write, or what are the characters that you can write in a function. So we have a lot of functions, right? So for example, we have a function like this. So you might be thinking, can you only add, strings in it? So for example, imagine write a function like print, let's write this as fruits again. Let's take this because it's a simple example and it will become a lot more easy for you to understand. And let's write something like print, print something, like let's leave this away. And let's add my underscore function and to print it. So now, if you ask it to print fruits, you will probably just print it what you wrote here, right? But what if you didn't write strings? So for example, what if you wrote numbers or lists or tuples, etc.? Will it accept it? The answer is yes, it does accept any type of data type. So for example, if you add tuples or lists as well, it will accept it. So for example, if you add something like now since this is a since it's a collection data type or an array, it will accept it. So for example, if you roll it down something like this, it will accept it because it is a collection data type, and like I said, functions can accept any type of data types. It can accept numbers, it can accept strings, etc. So list, tuples, dictionary can also be added in functions. So we'll talk, I kind of talked about collection data types and what this type of collection data type is in my previous episodes, so I recommend checking them out for understanding this. But this is the basic, not the basic, but these are some of the important things that you need to know in Python. So, if you haven't checked my previous episodes, I recommend checking them out because it will make you, understand this concept a lot better. But hope I enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, subscribe with the notification bell so you don't miss on any new videos. And that's all folks, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.